He's a former NHL All-Star, gold medalist, Norris winning defenseman. He is now working for ESPN. PK Subban rejoins the show. What's up, brother? How we doing?
What's going on, guys? You forgot one thing. I'm also part-time model now, so no one can see any of my work, but I also do modeling part-time.
You're doing some modeling, eh? That's good.
Way.
That's good. Hey, good for you, man. Like, honestly?
Absolutely not. No, I'm not. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not.
You're not. Okay. Hey, so last time you were on with me, you gave it to Keefe, man. Like, it was a good one. Like, I really enjoyed it. It was honest. It was refreshing. It was, it was fair. And now, last night, Leafs play their old coach. They got their new coach in the building. I'm curious I don't think I got an opportunity to speak to you about it. What do you think about the Berube hire? Like, how do you think this is going to work out for Toronto? Was this the right choice for them?
Well, first of all, in regards to Sheldon Keefe, I want to say this. It's nothing personal. Like, I don't have an issue with Sheldon Keefe. I've never played for him. Mm-hmm. I've met him one time, and he was very nice. I met him with his wife. Seemed like a really, really nice guy. But, my loyalty now in doing this job is to the fan base and making sure that they understand what's going on. So it's nothing personal. Nothing I do now is ever personal. I try to do good by the game and the audience and keep things down the fairway. When I talk in specifics about the job that someone's doing, either as a coach, GM, president, ownership, or players on the ice, I try to keep it down the fairway. But, with Craig Berube, he comes in, he says that the Toronto Maple Leafs have to play a tougher brand and style of hockey. And, my answer to that would be like, okay, well, show me how you're going to do that. Because, I also believe this. As much as you can tell guys to go into the corner and put a guy into the fifth row, not everybody is built like that. And, to win a championship, the team that he had in St. Louis, you look at that team top to bottom, like look at Ryan O'Reilly right now. Like, look at what his career has been since he's found himself in St. Louis on other teams. So you need to have the horses. I don't care who you are. Without the horses, it's difficult to win. And I think that Craig Berube is going to manage this team a certain way. Like, I watched the game last night, and, the way he looks at it, I'm sure, is we don't need Austin Matthews and Willie Nylander and Mitch Marner to be riding shotgun for us to beat the Devils. Like, if we're a championship team, we're going to be a championship team, we got to get everybody involved. And I think that's what he's going to do more than anything, is that it's not to say that those guys aren't going to get their points. We're not focused on the core four. It's about the rest of the team and how they come together. So, my answer to Craig Berube is show me that these guys are going to show up and battle and play the style of play that you want every night. And that's his challenge, is you got to get those guys to compete and score more dirty goals and win more battles in the dirty areas. And it's not just the Toronto Maple Leafs. There's a long list of teams in the league that are going to have that test this year, and they got to pass it.
Yeah, so, again, so far, the depth guys are thriving with this new system, right, and this style of play. You see them bring in the guys like Steven Lorentz, and Reeves looks better. The fourth line looks really good so far. The third line, your old guy, Pacioretty, he bangs one in last night. They're doing okay with it. But, yeah, the top guys, Tavares scores one yesterday, but the top three, they don't have points yet. And, you mentioned buying into that style. When do you think that maybe they start to break some old habits, or when do you as a player go, okay, you got to start to show it now into the season?
Well, it's early. You can't. My job as an analyst is to analyze what I see in that moment, in that game. But the reality is as an ex-player, it's a long season. Like, you're not winning the Stanley Cup or losing it in the first 20 games. You're not losing it in the first 30 games. So we saw St. Louis where they sat in January and February and where they ended up, hoisting the Stanley Cup. So this is the NHL now. There's a ton of parity. You can't get too high and too low throughout the season. But for the Toronto Maple Leafs, if I'm looking at the Toronto Maple Leafs and certain teams in the National Hockey League, I can't even judge those teams until they get to the postseason. Like, we know Toronto Maple Leafs should be in the postseason. They're going to make the playoffs, but it's what you do after that. And for an Original Six franchise, for me, those teams always have the most pressure from their fan bases because there's an expectation to win. And Toronto's been at it now for a while now with this core four. So they have to find a way to break through. 5 coaches, 5 GMs, 10 years, 1 playoff round win is not good enough. Not with that talent group. Like, it's got to – so when do we now say, is this the year where now we're saying, okay, is it cup or bust? Like, you saw Edmonton say it, right? Connor McDavid came out and said, hey, this is our year. We got to get to the Stanley Cup final. Like, it's cup or bust. And that's what they did. So I don't know if internally the Leafs are putting the same pressure on themselves, but, I just think there's way too much talent in that locker room for them to have those results in the postseason, and it's not just on the players, it's everything.
Yeah, but when you're talking about do they have the horses for this style of play, do you think that those 3 guys specifically are going to eventually fit it? Like, are they going to fit that what Berube wants? You said it's early, but eventually down the line, like, you can see what they're trying to do and who they have, and you've got a large sample of what they've been in the league. Do they get there?
Well, how many goals did Austin Matthews have last season? How many goals did he have?
Over 40.
Okay. So well, let's put it this way, right? Whether he's getting 50 or 60 or 70, if Austin Matthews doesn't score all those goals last year, where are the Toronto Maple Leafs? Like, are they? Do they get that scoring from somewhere else? Does Willie score more goals? Does Mitch? Like, you have to show these players that them changing their style of play is going to amount into team success. And I don't think in my time there that they have had enough of a strong enough team around those players for them to tweak their game and change their game. Like, Austin Matthews has to go out and score those goals. He's got to do it because they can't keep pucks out of their own net. So if he's not scoring goals and generating offense, like, you still got to get through the regular season. So it's great that, everybody wants to play a more grinding style of play, but you also have to play to who you are. And those players are skilled players. It's not just about tweaking their game. It's the discipline of making sure that, A, you're drafting properly and you're bringing in the right personnel to insulate those players. And I don't think that that's been done well enough over the past 10 years. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, yes, does Austin Matthews got to get more physical? Of course. Does Mitch Marner have to pay attention to more? Yeah, we can pick apart all the top players' games, but are they being insulated enough with players that can come in and complement this team so that they can have more success in tighter games, win games 1-0. And I'll give Sheldon Keefe this credit, and I don't think enough people do. In that series against Boston, he made adjustments in the playoffs. I thought the Toronto Maple Leafs deserved to beat Boston. They were the better team in that series. Overall, if you go back and watch those games, the Toronto Maple Leafs deserved to win that series. And a lot of that had to do with the adjustments that Sheldon Keefe made down the stretch. So as much as I was hard on him throughout the year, I will give him credit for that. He made adjustments, and I saw the team get better. So, I think that for them, a lot of it is going to be what Mr. Trey Living does to bring in players to insulate this team. They've made some changes. I think that they've had a decent start to the season because they're getting other players involved. That's important. Their depth is going to have to carry them through the season. They didn't overplay Austin Matthews. They only played 21 minutes. If those guys are getting up into the 24, 25 minutes, 23 minutes every game, it's too much. Austin Matthews doesn't need to be killing penalties. You don't want him blocking shots. No, he can do that. He doesn't need to do that. And that's where the problem is for the Leafs, is that I think they've been riding those guys a little too much. They have to build the team. And I think that's where Craig Berube can make an impact on that team, and I hope he does.
Yeah. Matthews, 69 goals last season, Nylander, 49, and those guys, missed a bit of that series against Boston as well. So you watched the game yesterday. Again, very early returns, but if we're talking about things that bled from last year into this one, the power play killed them in that series against Boston. If they're just normal, they win that series running away with it. They couldn't do it. They got one power play goal in the entire series. It was ice cold. They could not break through. And it was those 5 guys, right? It's this incredibly talented power play, and it just hasn't been working. To start this season, the reason why Marner, Matthews, and Nylander, they don't have any points on the board is, again, the power play has gone cold. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on how it looked to you last night And yeah, whether or not they might need to change things moving forward rather than just have those same 5 guys be that first unit.
Okay, well, let's start here. When was the last time the Toronto Maple Leafs had a number one defenseman? Like a true number one defenseman. That would be a top D-man on any other team. Tell me that.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that they've had some great D-men come through that team, some great players. But, Morgan Riley, love him, but he's not running a power play the way that an Oliver Ekman-Larsson is in his prime or any of those players. So I think bringing in a guy like Oliver Ekman-Larsson in the playoffs is going to help them throughout the regular season in doing that. Now, I don't know if he's the answer there, but I think that you got to be able to simplify things in the playoffs. Okay, I'm a guy that's played on the power play to D-man, and maybe I'm a little bit biased.
That's what I'm asking you.
I see this now. Yeah, I see this a lot now in the NHL where guys are looking for the seam pass. Everything is about the seam and exposing the seams. I don't know. Maybe I'm from a different era, but I think that in the playoffs, you got to be able to have a defenseman at the top that's a threat to score. He's got to be a threat to shoot the puck. And for the Leafs, I think that when things get tight, they don't have that threat from the top. So now they have to force plays. Teams push out on them. They keep a tight box. And it's going to be difficult to beat a great goaltender. You're playing Bobrovsky or Shesterkin, you ain't beating them from outside the dots. You're not beating them. So to me, you have to build your power play to at least be able to get those scoring chances and create opportunities in tighter games. And it's great to dance around when you got 4 or 5 guys on there that are high-skilled guys in the regular season. But come playoff time, the ice is going to shrink. And I think that for them to pick up a guy like Oliver Ekman-Larsson, I think gives them another option on the top, a guy that can shoot the puck, who we saw made a difference for the Florida Panthers. And, I saw him, they made that switch from Montour to OEL last year in the Stanley Cup final, and I thought it made a huge difference. I thought they should have done it earlier. And when you think about him now possibly on a power play with the likes of Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and William Nylander, he's not going to have to do too much. So I think it's having a guy that's more of a power play specialist on the top that knows how to shoot the puck, when to shoot it, I think will give them more options. You need a threat at the top, and they just didn't really have that last year.
So, yeah, they bring in OEL. They add Tanev. And then hopefully if Hakanpää's knee can hold up, he'll end up being their 6th defenseman. How much better do you think Toronto's blue line is this year overall?
I did like the OEL pickup because he's a guy who sort of changed his game. I think he's way more difficult to play against than people give credit for. He plays with an edge. He can be physical. He's got a long stick. He's rangy. He moves pucks. He can make plays. He can jump into the rush. So to me, I think he's going to be their most utilized D-man, and he should be. So, the only question is that health, making sure that his body holds up and he doesn't lose a step. But he was as solid as they come for Florida last year. Like they won a Stanley Cup. I think adding a player like that is definitely going to help their blue line. So there's an improvement there. Is it enough? I don't know. We have to see. But I'm going to tell you this: if they continue to get the goaltending that they got from Hillaby, if they continue to have health at the goaltending position and get that consistent goaltending, their D don't have to be great. They don't have to be great. So, I think that you have to wait and be patient with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Let them get adjusted to Craig Berube style. And he hasn't really put the pressure on them yet. Like, he hasn't put his clamp on them yet. Wait till they get into the season and, they maybe hit a rough patch. That's when you're going to see how they respond to him as a coach. And, I'm pulling for the Leafs. I do. I hope that these guys can play a tougher brand of hockey and be able to go toe-to-toe with the Florida Panthers team, a team like that. I'd love to see that happen because they have so many skilled players there that deserve the opportunity.
So this one's a bit of a tougher comparison because when you played in Montreal, you were beloved like the entire time there. Maybe you can speak differently if you felt like there was some criticism, especially from the fans that at times felt like super heavy. But, yeah, you've been a guy who's not afraid of the limelight. You soaked up a lot of criticism throughout your career. A lot of media, took shots at you. A lot of fans later in your career especially started to take shots at you. Again, it never seemed to be something that you shied away from. I am curious to hear your perspective on how you think Marner is going to be able to handle this year. Because I don't think he thrives with the attention the same way that you did when it came to media and fans. And he is going to be scrutinized in a way this year that even for this market, even for this fan base, I can't recall a guy who is under this much pressure to succeed both in the regular season and then especially in the playoffs after another slow start. I guess, what do you think this year is going to be like for him? Is there anything that you think he's going to have to try and avoid or something specific that he can do? Like, what are your thoughts on Mitch Marner and the pressure that he's going to be facing this season in an Original Six market?
Well, first of all, pressure to me is eating bad Mexican food and not being able to find a bathroom. Like, that's pressure to me. It's always been like that. Yeah. I think that players put way too much pressure on themselves. Like, what do I care about what somebody in the media thinks about my game and how I'm playing? That's never picked up a stick, that hasn't put in the time that I put in. So if you don't have that mindset at the professional level, you're wasting your time. You're wasting way too much energy. So, that would be the first message that I would send to any player. But for me specifically, you're asking about me and my career. When I got called up to play in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, my first shift, I have a breakout pass, and it's a drop pass in the corner with 2 forecheckers between my legs right on Scott Gomez's tape. And for me, I never, ever wanted to change my game, change what got me to the NHL. Yeah, you have to tweak it. You have to improve. You got to get better. You got to grow. You have to learn how to play within the team structure and the style. But I was never going to change my game for anybody because I knew there were a lot of things that I could do that other guys can't do, and they still can't do. So for me, when it's that clear for you, and I often tell players this, be a student of the game. Don't just go and play and want to win the Stanley Cup and get your contract and make a lot of – become a student of the game. Understand the game. Then you understand your true value as a player. Then you can always be realistic with yourself when you look in the mirror. So for me, I never got caught up in media and what people were saying because I know it was all biased. People are jealous. People are jealous of the money you make. People are jealous of how good you are. People are jealous that you know you're good. Like, people don't like that. People don't like it that you're yourself. People want you to conform. They want to be able to put you in a box. They want to be able to understand you. People don't like what they don't understand. So when you have that perception and that understanding, you don't get upset about it because that's just people being people. That's just it. There's 8 billion people on this planet. Not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to agree. Not everybody's going to, coddle you when you want to be coddled. That's just the real world. So I would never teach a player to try to get everybody to like you. Just be yourself. And in regards to Mitch Marner, he is an all-star, superstar talent in the National Hockey League. Mm-hmm. For any Toronto Maple Leafs fan that doesn't support him as a player, you will miss him when he's gone. I will guarantee that. I don't care if they win a Stanley Cup in his time. If Mitch Marner leaves that team and they win a cup, they're still going to wish that he stayed there because I'm going to tell you something. You're going to watch him go somewhere else and possibly win multiple cups. He's that good of a player. When it comes to Nylander, Marner, and Austin Matthews, the 3 of those guys, where they are in their careers right now, they would be top players on any team. So to me, it's about management. And especially in an Original Six franchise, it's on management to make sure, A, that the player feels loved, protected, and that the team's got his back. I don't speak to players about stuff like that because you know me. I'm not an insider. I'm not trying to have breaking news or anything like that. That's just not my thing. But when I look at Mitch Marner, I think the scrutiny that he's under is unwarranted. I don't think it makes any sense. Like, I don't get it. I really don't get it. And for Toronto fans, like, I would sit down with any of them and I would say, justify to me what you don't like about Mitch Marner and what he's done for your team. Because if you look at his numbers and the numbers that he's put up, last year in the playoffs, he had a good playoffs. So I don't understand, like, what is the problem? What is it that people don't like about him or that people are upset about? So for me, I see an elite player that's been elite in the National Hockey League since he's been there. And the Toronto Maple Leafs should be happy that they have him because every other team on the planet would love to have Mitch Marner. So he's that great of a player, and you got to keep it real. You got to keep it real. That's what it is. That's what it is on Mitch Marner. Period. End of story.
Hey, PK, this was great. Thanks as always for the time, buddy.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yep.
All right.
Take
Bye
care,
now.
man. Good luck with the modeling career.